The Nintendo Switch eShop could be a pretty daunting place. It seems like every week about 10 or 12 different games drop for the Nintendo Switch, and a lot of these games nobody really knows anything about. Nobody's heard of these games, nobody's played these games, a lot of them are smaller, so it could be pretty challenging to figure out what games are good, what games are bad, what games you should check out, and what games you should avoid. Well, thankfully there's people like me on the internet who play a lot of these games, and recently I've been playing some Nintendo Switch eShop games, and I think a few of them are pretty good. A few of them deserve to be mentioned in a video, and a few of them should have your attention if you're a fan of these style of games. So in this video we're going to take a look at 4 recent Nintendo Switch games that have come out that I've actually been playing and really enjoying. And then there's one game we're going to talk about that was just really bad. It was really bad, and I don't want you to pick up that game. So let's talk about 4 recently released Nintendo Switch games that are really good and one that's just no.
Hey, RGT 85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards!
So the first game I want to talk about actually released this past week. It got a physical version as well, and that is Wild Guns Reloaded. Now, I will probably refer to this as Wild Arms at least one time in this segment, so bear with me here. But Wild Guns Reloaded is a really fun game. It's based on the Super Nintendo game that released back in, I think, 1992, I believe it was, and Wild Guns was just a really fun game. Basically, the way the gameplay works is you're on a stagnant screen, and there's a bunch of enemies just coming out of everywhere. It sort of plays like a old light gun game, but it's with a third-person perspective. You could see your character, and so you're moving your cursor around on the screen and having to take out these different enemies. Now, they've actually added a bunch of different things in the Reloaded version. Obviously, the best thing about it is improved graphics. The graphics are much cleaner and crisper than the original Super Nintendo version, but they've also added in new characters. There's 2 new characters to play as, and they have really unique play styles. So even if you're like a hardcore grizzled veteran of the Super Nintendo version of the game, there's a lot of fun to still be had. Now, one thing about Wild Guns Reloaded is this game is very, very challenging. My first few times playing it, I was struggling to beat the first level boss. Like, it's pretty challenging game, but thankfully they've included a bunch of difficulty modes, including one difficulty mode that's exclusive to the Nintendo Switch version of the game. This game released last year on the PS4 and the Xbox One, so most of this stuff that I'm talking about is applicable to that version of the game as well if you're a PS4 or an Xbox One owner, but I do want to mention the 2 Switch specific features as well, just in case you're planning on picking up the Switch version. The first thing is a beginner mode, which essentially just lets you go through the game and play the game, and it doesn't worry about things like lives and whatnot. So that's pretty cool because this game, like I said, is very challenging, and it's a good mode so you can sort of see some of the later levels because you do have a limited life system when you play on anything easy and above. And this game is based on getting high scores. Your high score goes onto an online database, so it's imperative that you get high scores in this game. Another Switch specific feature that was added in this game is a boss rush mode. So once again, you can check out the different bosses in the game, learn their strategies, and see how to take them down. Now, unfortunately, this game does not have any online co-op. That's across all versions of the game, but the Switch version does support local co-op along with the PS4 and the Xbox One version. So honestly, if you have a couple friends, it's definitely worth checking out, and it's even pretty fun as a single player experience. If you're a fan of older retro style games, you'll definitely love this game. You've probably played it on the Super Nintendo, and it's nice to see this game come to the Nintendo Switch. The physical version seems to be a little bit tricky to capture and track down, so be on the lookout for it, but you can pick it up on the Nintendo Switch eShop. I believe it's $29.99, and I highly recommend it. I've been having a blast playing this game, trying to get higher scores and stuff. So Wild Guns Reloaded, definitely an RGT recommended game. You should definitely check out this game. The next game I want to talk about is definitely not for everyone, but it's a game that I've been enjoying, and as a budget title, I think a lot of retro style gamers will enjoy this game, and that is Deep Ones. Now, if you're familiar with 80s English computers, you would know that the Spectrum ZX was a pretty popular system, computer system over in England during the 80s, and I've never really experienced any Spectrum games, but this game is definitely heavily inspired by those games from that time. It definitely looks, sounds, and feels a lot like a Spectrum ZX game. game. So I can appreciate that. That's actually pretty cool to me. Basically, you play as this guy whose submarine crashes and now you're underwater and having to do different situations in a 2D platformer setting. And it's definitely not the greatest game on this list, but I had a lot of fun with it. One thing that really stands out to me in this game is the music. The music is really, really well done. It has that 80s synth pop sort of thing, but using the Spectrum's sort of sound chip or trying to emulate it, it sounds really good. And the graphics and the colors really, really pop in this game because the Spectrum had a limited color palette that it could choose from, and it definitely uses that same color palette. So the areas can look really, really good. It's very stylized. It's a very fun game. It's not super long. It's definitely not a game that, 2 years from now you'll probably even think about, but as something just to pass the time, you got a couple hours to kill and you enjoy 2D platformers with the retro aesthetic, you're gonna like Deep Ones. I've seen a lot of negative reviews for this game and I'm not quite sure why. I really enjoyed it. I was really drawn into it. There's some really cool things that happen within the game as well, sort of deviations to the gameplay. It's a bit slow, it's a bit sluggish, but I did still enjoy the game. So Deep Ones, if you're looking for a budget 2D platformer game, definitely check it out, and especially if you like retro games, I think you'll have a good time with it. The next game I want to talk about is a game that I actually planned on doing like a full review on, but I quickly realized that this game is very large in terms of scope and how long it'll take me to complete. But I did kind of want to mention it because it's an interesting game that I think some people will enjoy, and I know that I have been enjoying it. And that is a 3D action RPG called Eternal Edge. And it's a really unique sort of game. I'm not quite sure what it was going for, but I think it sort of succeeded in whatever it wanted to accomplish. Basically, the story of the game is you're an apprentice warrior, your leader gets killed by a guy called the Skeleton King. The Skeleton King resides on a elevated platform that's held down by 4 chains. You have to take down the 4 chains, which are 4 dungeons that you must defeat in order to bring him down to the level you are at so you could defeat the Skeleton King. The game isn't really heavy on story though, because it definitely has sort of retro style elements to it, and it even comes in with the graphics. Like, I'm not quite sure what sort of graphical style they were going for, sort of a Minecraft, Dragon Quest builders, but the overworlds themselves sort of look more realistic. I don't know, it's kind of weird and kind of unique, but what I really like about the game is the actual gameplay of the game. The combat is pretty basic in my opinion. You could sort of map different magic abilities and potions and spells to your buttons, and of course you have your main attack, which is done by your weapons. You pick up different weapons and you can combine different weapons to make those weapons stronger. So if you ever see weapons on the map, make sure you pick them up, because the game doesn't really give you a handheld tutorial on how things work. Basically, what's interesting though is how you level up your character. You don't just go out there and fight people and sort of level grind. You have to find these things called matrices. And the matrices, that's a tough word to say. The matrices are not just, playing out there in sight. Sometimes they'll be in a hidden treasure chest that you find as you're walking throughout the kingdom. Sometimes you have to do side quests to get different matrices, and then sometimes there's just stuff you'll come across that allows you to get a matrix, such as capture a fort and wipe out different enemies and things of that nature. What I like about the game though is just sort of the free aesthetic of the game. It doesn't really hold your hand. It just sort of drops you into this world, and then you just kind of find your own path. You carve your own path with this game as far as where you're supposed to go. And I like that about the game. I like the sense of exploration, and there's a lot of decent things about the game as well. The spell system works really well. I enjoy the unique leveling up system. There's a bunch of side dungeons that are 8-bit dungeons that feel a lot like The Legend of Zelda, the original game, where it's a top-down view, and you might find a matrix in there, you might find a weapon, things of that nature when you clear them out. There's just a lot to do and a lot to see, and I like coming across the different cities and things like that and having to solve different problems. There's lots of side quests within the city. If you're looking for a solid 3D action RPG, I think Eternal Edge is a solid pickup. Once again, that's another game that I've been seeing sort of getting bashed in the media a bit, and I don't really understand why, because as a fan of 3D action RPG games, I've been having a good time with it. If you've already beat The Legend of Zelda, you've already beat Xenoblade Chronicles, you're waiting for Ys 8, this is a decent time filler. It's about $20, but I definitely think a lot of people will enjoy this game. I will say that there are 2 problems with the game that can be a bit problematic, I guess you would say. The combat, like I said, isn't all that great. There are situations where I would find that I would just die really quickly, and I wasn't quite sure why. You can also defend yourself, but sometimes it seems like the enemies just have these one-hit KOs, and save points can be a bit far between in different areas. You basically have to save at a camp. site that you find, so that was a bit annoying. And sometimes you can just get in really close and just mash the attack button and defeat an enemy as well, so it sort of shakes out the strategy of the game. The big problem with Eternal Edge though is the loading in the game. Sometimes I'll be going for like 10 minutes across the landscape and have no loading, and then sometimes I'll be in a village and the game will just constantly load. I don't know, it's pretty weird. The developer did tell me that they are working on the load times in a future patch for the game, and sometimes you won't have any issues with them, sometimes you'll have a lot of issues with them. It doesn't really seem to have any sort of trigger or indication of when it's going to happen. But all in all, Eternal Edge, it's a decent game, and if you're a fan of 3D action RPGs, maybe a game you should check out. The final good game on the list is a game that I didn't even realize came out, and when I was just browsing through the eShop, I saw it and I said, I have to have it. And that is Loadrunner Legacy. Loadrunner Legacy is a really highly polished Nintendo Switch game. Once again, a retro style game, like most of these games have been on this list, but it's really, really well done. The basic premise is simple. You have to collect gold pieces and avoid getting touched by enemies. It's definitely very retro. The levels are one screen, stagnant screen, and it's a very puzzle-based game. You have a hammer thing that allows you to break blocks, and by breaking the blocks you can access different areas. And basically what I like about this game though is just the sheer level of content within it. In the story mode you have 50 different levels. After you do that, there's an extra mode that unlocks that adds even more levels with different enemy locations and different item pieces. Then you have a classic mode, which is a retro style mode that has 100 levels. Then there's even create a level that you can create your own levels, upload them online, and download other people's levels, and that just gives the game infinite replay value. It's really amazing how much content is in here for like a $12 game. The graphics are really well done. It definitely has that retro aesthetic with a modern sheen to it. The story mode is okay, you know, you're not going to get like a groundbreaking story. It's more about the gameplay with this, but the puzzles are pretty challenging. I've actually found myself playing the game, I'm like, oh, I'll just play another level or two, and the next thing I know, like 2 hours have gone by because I'm stuck on a puzzle and I'm trying to figure it out. If you're a fan of retro style games that have that sort of puzzle-based gameplay, I think Loadrunner Legacy is an amazing game and an amazing collection. It's definitely one of my favorite games on this list, and it's a game I've been thoroughly enjoying. One negative about the game is there's only one song in the game, and it just repeats over and over again. It is a good song, but it does get a bit tiring, so you may want to turn down the music volume. But there's a lot of options, there's a lot of things to do, a lot of things to see in Loadrunner Legacy, and I'm kind of surprised not more people are talking about this game. So definitely a game you should check out, a game that I've really been enjoying and that gives you a great value for your dollar. So yes, we've covered the 4 good games, which means that we need to talk about the one bad game, and that is a game called North. Now, North is a $3 game, so usually I'm not too hard on budget releases, but this game, there's a thing, like, if it's unplayable and it just is unplayable, like, I don't have time for this. I don't care if it's $1 or $3 or $5. North is literally damn near unplayable. So the game starts out and it gives you this screen saying that it's supposed to be beaten in one section. There is no main menu, there is nothing. It just thrusts you into the game will take you about an hour, so on and so forth. The whole game is based on discovering different things. You'll see a little envelope pop up on the bottom of the screen, and then you have to write a letter to your sister. You live in the North, you used to live in the South. The North is like this weird place, asylum thing. There's all these weird things going on. It's very artsy, but I feel like it's artsy just to be artsy. And one of the problems with this game is the graphics itself. You could tell that this game was made by Unity, besides the fact that it says it's made by Unity, because there are a lot of pre-done Unity textures. You've seen these textures on budget Wii U games before, the bricks and stuff like that, little crosses. It's like, is this a demo? Is this a tech demo? What is this? And one thing I cannot stand about the game is just the actual controls of the game, because like I said, there is no main menu, so you cannot adjust your stick sensitivity and whatnot, and it just feels very sluggish. It's very slow. It's very plodding when you're moving around or even trying to look around. It's very delayed and you're looking and it's just like, ugh. And I do like the music in the game. It's very synthwave-ish, 80s stuff, but there's not enough music to sort of keep me going. And the graphics are just not that good. Besides the fact that it uses a bunch of pre-done assets, it's just, there's this weird effect, especially when you're playing on handheld mode, and it's very blurry and it gives you a headache. I don't know. I thought for a $3 game, I might get a decent enjoyment out of it. I've seen a lot of negative stuff on it, but I do like to try things out for myself. But North is just a game that you should avoid at any cost. It's not worth the $3. Maybe if you see it for like a quarter on sale on the eShop, if you're morbidly curious about it and you want to get a game that's going to give you a headache, check out North. But other than that, no. Alright, so that's 4 Nintendo Switch games that I've been playing recently that I recommend, that I think are fun games, and games that I'm going to continue playing because I'm having a good time playing them, and one game that I've already deleted off of my Nintendo Switch and will never play again. Let me know in the comments section down below if you've checked out any of these games, what you think about them, am I right, am I wrong, and maybe even give me some suggestions of games that I should check out that you would like to see me talk about as well, because I'm always open to suggestions. I'm always looking for new and different games to play, because that's kind of what I do for a living, I guess, is play video games. That's pretty crazy. Anyways, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm always doing reviews of different games for either the Switch, the Xbox One, the PS4, all sorts of fun stuff. There's RGT News, which is every Wednesday and Friday morning at 9 a.m. sharp. That gets you up to date with all the world of gaming news. And of course, if you really enjoyed this video, make sure you check out the description box down below. We got Patreon, we got t-shirts like these, we got social media, all sorts of fun ways to keep up to date with the world of RGT 85, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Later.
RGT 85. RGT 85. RGT